The hand came out of nowhere. One second, I was standing in the private room of that overpriced steakhouse in Katy, Texas, the night before my only son's wedding, and the next second, Lauren's open palm cracked across my face so hard, my reading glasses flew off and shattered against the hardwood floor. 75 people, family, friends, Ryan's coworkers, all froze mid-conversation. The sting burned, but the silence hurt worse. Lauren didn't even lower her voice. "You selfish old woman," she hissed, smoothing the skirt of her white rehearsal dress like nothing had happened. "That 300-acre farm is just sitting there rotting while we're scraping by in a rented condo. You don't need all that land at your age, Maggie. Ryan and I do." I knelt down, hands shaking, gathering pieces of broken glasses while heads turned away. My son Ryan stood 3 feet from me, staring at his shoes, saying nothing, not one word. My name is Margaret Whitaker, but everybody calls me Maggie. I'm 70 years old, widowed 15 years, and I work 3 mornings a week at the little public library in town. I drive a 2009 Silverado with rust on the doors, and I still wear the same cotton dresses I bought at the outlet mall a decade ago. To Lauren and most of the people in that room, I'm just the broke widow clinging to a falling down family farm outside Sealy, Texas. They had no idea. If you've ever been publicly humiliated by the people who were supposed to love you, stay with me. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is about the night everything changed. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how it ends. I stood there picking up the pieces of my glasses while Lauren kept screaming that a woman my age didn't need 300 acres of prime Texas land just to grow weeds and memories. Ryan finally looked up, but only long enough to mutter, "Mom, just sign the papers tomorrow and we can all move on." Then he turned back to his phone like the whole thing was an annoying delay in his evening. I walked out without another word. The valet brought my rusty 2009 Silverado around, and a couple of Ryan's Houston friends actually laughed under their breath when they saw it. I drove the 45 minutes west on I-10 with the windows down, letting the warm October air slap me harder than Lauren ever could. By the time I turned onto the gravel road that leads to the old Whitaker place outside Sealy, my cheek had stopped burning, but something colder had settled in my chest. I passed the faded mailbox that still says Thomas and Margaret Whitaker in peeling letters and pulled up to the farmhouse everyone in Austin County thinks is one bad storm away from collapsing. The porch light was on, same as always, because Hal Morrison next door still comes over every evening to feed the barn cats and flip the switch for me. I sat on the steps for a long minute staring at the dark fields that stretch all the way to the Brazos River bottom. 300 acres. That's what Lauren wanted, what she thought she could scream out of me. 2.5 years earlier, Ryan had brought her home for the first time. She stepped out of his leased BMW wearing 4-inch heels that sank straight into the caliche driveway. Her eyes did a slow sweep of the sagging barn, the 1950s tractor rusting by the fence, the clothesline with my faded dresses flapping in the wind. I still remember the exact face she made, like she'd smelt something bad. "Ryan said y'all had land," she finally said, forcing a smile that never reached her eyes. "It's bigger than I expected." That was the first hint. Not the last. Over the next months, the comments came steady, but polite at first. Lauren would be scrolling on her phone at Sunday lunch and casually mention how influencers her age were buying ranches outside Austin, turning them into wedding venues or Airbnb compounds. Then she started tagging along when Ryan came to check on the cattle lease, asking questions about mineral rights, about how much the place might be worth if the house was torn down and the acreage subdivided. I kept working my 3 mornings at the Sealy Public Library, shelving books and helping seniors with the computers because I liked it, not because I needed the $9 an hour. I kept driving the same dented truck Thomas bought new the year Ryan graduated high school. I kept wearing the silver hair I quit coloring after the funeral. I played the part perfectly. What Lauren never understood was that my husband Thomas hadn't been the quiet pipeline welder everyone remembered. He'd been one of the sharpest landmen in South Texas before the cancer took him. Every lease he negotiated, every royalty check that came in the mail went straight into quiet accounts nobody in town ever knew about. The farm that looked like it was barely hanging on paid me $42,000 a month in oil royalties alone and had for the last 12 years. And for the last 4 of those years, almost every dollar Ryan and Lauren spent on their River Oaks condo rent, on Ryan's failed crypto trades, on Lauren's sponsored post-wardrobe had come from me, wired quietly through a trust they never knew existed. I was still sitting on those steps when my phone lit up with Ryan's name. I let it ring. Because tomorrow was supposed to be the wedding out at the pecan orchard, and I had just decided it was time Ryan and Lauren learned exactly what happens when you lay hands on the wrong old woman. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in Thomas's old leather chair in the living room with the windows open, listening to the oil pumps thumping steady in the distance like a slow heartbeat. $42,000 a month. That's what the Eagle Ford had been sending me since the first horizontal wells came in back in 2012. Thomas had negotiated overriding royalty interests on every lease before he got sick, and the operators never even met the widow cashing the checks. I opened the safe behind the bookshelf and pulled out the ledger I hadn't touched in years. Page after page of transfers I'd made for Ryan without him ever knowing. $68,000 to cover the deposit and first year's lease on that River Oaks condo Lauren had to have for her Instagram backdrop. $39,000 to pay off the margin calls when Ryan thought he was the next crypto genius in 2021. Another $27,000 for the Range Rover lease Lauren parked in the garage and called our little family car. 4 years of keeping their heads above water while they laughed at my rust bucket truck and my library name tag. By sunrise, I'd made coffee and called Daniel Reed, the same lawyer who'd handled Thomas's estate and every lease since 1998. His voice was gravel and calm when he answered. Maggie, it's 5:30 in the morning. I know what time it is, Daniel. I need you at the wedding today. Bring everything. A long pause. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything since the day Thomas died. I showered, put on the simple navy dress I'd bought for the ceremony, pinned my hair the way I always do, and drove back toward Katie. The pecan orchard looked beautiful in the morning light, white chairs in perfect rows, mason jars hanging from every branch, Lauren's entire influencer aesthetic brought to life. Ryan was already in his tux by the barn, pacing and checking his watch. He saw me coming and walked over fast. Mom, about last night, Lauren was stressed. We can forget it happened if you'll just sign the quitclaim deed after the ceremony. It's only paperwork. The farm stays in the family. I looked my only son in the eye, 37 years old, and still couldn't see past the next sponsored post. No, Ryan, today you're going to learn what family actually means. Daniel's black Suburban rolled up the gravel drive at 11 sharp, dust cloud rising behind it like smoke. He stepped out in his usual starched white shirt and Stetson, briefcase in one hand, Austin County Sheriff's Deputy Emily Grant walking beside him. Emily and I went to Sealeaf High together. She'd owed me a favor for 20 years. Lauren spotted them from the bridal tent and came storming across the grass, veil already pinned in her hair. Who are these people? We're 30 minutes from walking down the aisle. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He never does. Lauren Whitaker, Ryan Whitaker, I'm here on behalf of Margaret Whitaker to deliver formal notice. He opened the briefcase and started pulling documents one by one while guests turned in their chairs. Daniel didn't wait for Lauren to finish her sentence. He simply handed the first document to the wedding planner who was hovering nearby, then turned so every guest in the white chairs could hear him clearly. Effective 9 o'clock this morning, all financial support previously provided by Margaret Whitaker to Ryan and Lauren Whitaker has been terminated. This includes, but is not limited to, the monthly rent subsidy of $8,400 on the River Oaks condominium, the lease payments on the 2023 Range Rover, and the American Express card held in Ryan Whitaker's name with a $79,000 balance that has been paid in full every month for the last 46 months by Mrs. Whitaker. You could hear the mason jars clink in the breeze. That was the only sound. Lauren went white under her bridal makeup. That's a lie. Ryan's business paid for everything. Daniel pulled the next set of papers. Ryan's business, Whitaker Crypto Consulting LLC, filed for Chapter 7 liquidation 14 months ago. The only reason the condo landlord hasn't started eviction proceedings is because the rent was wired every third of the month from a trust account titled Margaret T. Whitaker, trustee. As of today, that trust no longer exists. Ryan took one step forward, like he was going to grab the papers, but Deputy Emily Grant moved between him and Daniel without even touching her sidearm, just presence. Ryan stopped cold. Lauren found her voice again, higher this time. You can't do this the day of our wedding. People flew in from California. Daniel kept going, calm as reading the weather. Additionally, the venue deposit of $28,000, guaranteed personally by Mrs. Whitaker, has been withdrawn. The orchard owner has been notified that final payment is now the responsibility of the bride and groom. The wedding planner's face went from confused to panicked. Guests started pulling out phones, not sure whether to film or call Uber. I finally spoke, and my voice didn't shake once. Ryan, Lauren, 4 years ago when the crypto crash hit and you were facing foreclosure on that condo you never told me you couldn't afford, I started helping, quietly, because that's what parents do. I paid so you wouldn't lose everything. I paid so my future daughter-in-law could keep posting pictures of brunches I funded while calling my farmhouse that dump in Sealy. Lauren's maid of honor actually gasped. I paid for this wedding too, I continued. Every mason jar, every string light, every overpriced barbecue truck. $56,000 total, money you thought came from Ryan's investors. Ryan's face crumpled. He looked smaller in that tux than I'd ever seen him. Mom, we didn't know it was you. That's the problem, Ryan. You never asked where the money was coming from. You just assumed you deserved it. Daniel closed the briefcase. All accounts are frozen. All automatic payments are canceled. You have until 5 o'clock today to settle with the venue, or the sheriff's department will escort remaining guests off the property. Lauren looked around at the phones pointed at her, at the guests already standing up, and for the first time since I'd met her, she had nothing to say. I turned and walked back toward my truck. The pecan leaves rustled overhead like they were clapping. 3 weeks later, I was out in the south pasture checking fences when Hal's old Ford rattled up the driveway. He climbed out carrying 2 coffees from the Chevron in town and wearing the kind of grin that meant big news. Thought you might want to hear this in person, he said, handing me a cup. The River Oaks condo got padlocked yesterday morning. Lauren's screaming on her stories about evil landlords and family betrayal. Lost half her followers overnight. I took a sip and leaned against the tailgate. They try to pay the venue yet? Hal laughed so hard he nearly spilled his coffee. They tried Venmo. The orchard owner told them cash or cashier's check only. They ended up owing $56,000 plus late fees. Sold Lauren's Range Rover at auction last week, brought $19,000 after liens, still short. That afternoon, Daniel called from his office in Belleville. Maggie, the bank just foreclosed on the condo. Title's already back with the landlord. Ryan's credit score dropped below 500. They're staying in Lauren's parents' double wide outside Baytown now. 3 adults, 2 chihuahuas, 1 bathroom. I hung up and walked the long way back to the house, past the pump jacks nodding like they were shaking their heads at the whole mess. A month after that, the first collection calls started hitting my phone because Ryan had listed me as a reference on half his old trades. I let them go to voicemail. Then came the certified letter. Ryan and Lauren had filed a civil suit in Harris County claiming intentional infliction of emotional distress and asking the court to force a sale of the farm to cover their losses. Daniel read it over speaker while I shelled peas on the porch. They're claiming you abused your position as a parent by withdrawing support you never told them existed. They want $2.4 million in damages. I laughed for the first time since the wedding. Let them try. Discovery was brutal and public. Every sponsored post Lauren had bragged about, every crypto trade Ryan swore was about to moon, every wire transfer from my accounts, it all came out in depositions. The judge in Houston denied their temporary restraining order in under 10 minutes, called it frivolous on its face. By spring, they'd burned through the last of Lauren's savings on lawyer fees. Chapter 7 bankruptcy filed in May. The trustees seized what little they had left, camera equipment, designer bags, the engagement ring Ryan still owed Kay Jewelers for. Lauren's parents kicked them out after the second missed utility bill. They moved into a 1-bedroom extended stay off I-10 with the baby that had arrived in February. A little boy named Thomas, after my husband, though they never asked if they could. I saw the first picture Sophie showed me on Facebook. Ryan in a Walmart vest, Lauren pushing a cart at night shift, both of them looking 10 years older than they were. The court sealed the custody add-on Lauren tried to file when she realized I'd never be paying for private preschool. Judge wrote in the order, given the petitioner's history of making unsubstantiated allegations against the child's paternal grandmother, all future filings will require pre-approval. In other words, leave Maggie Whitaker alone. 4 years later, I was sitting on the exact same porch swing Thomas built the year we moved into this house, watching the sun drop behind the back 40 like it had done 10,000 times before. The pump jacks were gone now. The last lease expired and the operator plugged the wells clean. I'd taken the buyout money and paid cash for the new community library wing in Sealy. They named the children's room after Thomas without me even asking. Sophie's pickup pulled up around supper time. She'd driven in from College Station, where she teaches agriculture extension these days. My daughter climbed the steps carrying a thick envelope and the kind of quiet face that means something heavy. Mom, this came certified to the department today. She handed it over. Return address, Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I opened it on the swing. Inside was Ryan's handwriting for the first time in 4 years. Mom, Lauren left 18 months ago. Took Thomas Jr. to Florida with some photographer she met on a shoot. I get supervised visits twice a month if I can afford the gas to Tampa. I work maintenance at the refinery in Texas City now, 12-hour shifts, $41,000 a year before taxes. The bankruptcy finally fell off my credit last month, but it doesn't matter. Nobody rents to you with a wage garnishment. I know I don't deserve to ask, but Thomas keeps asking about the farm and the pictures. He thinks his grandma lives in a storybook. I can't give him anything else. Could we come out one Saturday just to see the horses? I'll stay in the truck if that's what you want. No, I'm sorry. No, I was wrong. Just the same expectation that the land, the money, the love would still be waiting after everything they burned. I folded the letter and slipped it into my Bible where Thomas used to keep important papers. Sophie sat down beside me without asking what it said. She already knew. That night, I called Daniel one last time. Draw it up however you need to. The farm goes to the Scholarship Trust for girls who lose parents young. Sophie's name on everything. If Ryan ever gets clean long enough to be a real father, he'll have to do it without leaning on what his daddy and I built. Daniel didn't argue. He never does when he knows my mind's made up. The next Saturday came and went. Ryan's truck never turned down the gravel road. I heard later from Hal that he'd lost another job after failing a random drug screen. Lauren married the photographer in Destin and changed Thomas Jr.'s last name on Facebook. The boy is 6 now and probably doesn't remember the sound of pump jacks or the smell of fresh-cut coastal hay. I still work 3 mornings a week at the library, same as always. Still drive the same Silverado, though the rust has finally won in a few places. People in town nod when I pass, and some still call me Miss Maggie, like nothing ever happened. But something did happen. I learned that love has to be earned every single day, even from your own blood. And I learned that protecting someone from the consequences of their choices isn't love, it's just slow poison. The porch swing creaks the same as it did the night Lauren struck me, only now when I sit here, I don't feel the sting anymore. I feel free,